I love Nintendo remakes and remasters, and I know you're going to get your pitchforks and torches out just as I say that. But recently, I've been playing a lot of them. Mario vs. Donkey Kong, which is one of my favourite GBA games of all time. Xenoblade Chronicles X, which is a game I never played before. And Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, a game that I already own on the 3DS. And I want to use all three of these games to back up my argument. So let's talk about Nintendo remakes and remasters, and feel free to clap back in the comments. And if you want this chill retro content where we cover all games, remakes, remasters, all sorts of things, then please subscribe, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Now, I can already read the comments because I've gotten a lot of these on my remakes and remasters videos of people saying, oh, I already own the original game, so I don't want to go out and pay $50, $60, $70 to buy a game that I already own. And that is totally fine for the people that have a way to play them. I mean, you get the comments everywhere. You get the people who, they already own a Wii, 2 controllers, a nunchuck, the game, a CRT or a HDMI upscaler so they can play it. And then they dogpile on other people that support these sorts of ports like Donkey Kong Country HD Returns, when in actual fact, most people don't have a way to play it. Like, I was looking on a website called CEX, it's in the UK and Ireland. They're a used game retailer and tech retailer. And if we take Donkey Kong Country, for instance, you have two ways of playing that. You have the Wii version or the 3DS version. And if you don't have either of these consoles, a Wii is €75, the game is €18, and then you need to worry about outputting it to your TV, so you either need to find an old CRT or buy a cheap HDMI converter, so you're easily looking at €100 just to play a single game. And then your other option is to buy a 3DS, and the cheapest one I can see is a discounted 2DS, so it would have some scuffing or scratching or whatever on it, for €100, and then it would cost you €18 just to buy the game. So there you're looking at a €118 investment just to play Donkey Kong Country. But if you already have the Switch, that investment is already paid for, and then you can either buy it digitally, wait for a sale, or you can buy it used, or just go to any game retailer. And odds are, especially over here in Ireland, you could find Donkey Kong Country for €30, €40, around that price. I paid $45 for it, which is a really good price for that game, because that's how much it was on the 3DS. 3DS games used to be €45 10 years ago, or whenever this game came out, so, you know, adjust for inflation, the game is actually really cheap right now. And this point applies to the 3 games that I'm talking about in this video. Odds are, you don't have a Wii, you don't have a 3DS, you don't have a Wii U, or you don't have a GBA, because one, you might have had them when you were younger and you got rid of them to trade up to other consoles, because that's what I used to do when I was younger, or you never had it in the first place, and that brings me on to Xenoblade Chronicles X. So I had a Wii U, I bought the black Wii U, the Wind Waker bundle where you got Wind Waker, Mario Kart 8, and the black Wii U. It was a good deal back in the day, and I enjoyed playing a lot of games on it, like Mario Kart, like Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Captain Toad. The Wii U did have a lot of great games on it, but one game that I missed on it was Xenoblade Chronicles X. And you can definitely make an argument against Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, saying that, well, that game sold fairly well on Wii and 3DS, so the people that wanted to play that game more than likely already played it, and that is a fair argument to make. But when you go and look at Xenoblade Chronicles X, first of all, the Wii U sold, I believe, 13.56 million units, which is ridiculous. There are so many games that have sold more units than the Wii U did, which is just crazy. And then while I can't find concrete figures on the sales of Xenoblade Chronicles X, it seems to be well below 1 million, like in the 500,000-600,000 range. So there's not that many people that have played this game, and I would wager a guess that a lot of the sales of Xenoblade Chronicles X probably came from Japan. So to the vast majority of people, Xenoblade Chronicles X is a brand new game. And then you get into the quality of life improvements. Now again, I've never played the original version of Xenoblade X, but from watching reviews and reading some articles, they do seem to have added a load of quality of life improvements that just make it a way smoother experience to play. So not only are you getting a game that has probably 100 minimum hours of content in it, a game that has an amazing world, like an absolutely breathtaking world. It also has a deep combat system, and I love Xenoblade Chronicles X for being that game that I just sit down and play an hour or two every couple of days, maybe while I'm in bed. And the thing is, Xenoblade Chronicles X is a perfect Switch game, and it makes more sense on the Switch than it does the Wii U, because there's something about these JRPGs that will take ages to play, but the fact that you can play this at any point, you can play it in bed, you can play it on the toilet, you can play it on the train, you can play it sitting on your couch, you could play this absolutely anywhere really well with JRPGs specifically. And then to bring Mario versus Donkey Kong into this conversation, we have to talk about the GBA. Now, I have to preface this with, I love the GBA. It's potentially my favorite handheld console of all time. I think it's probably that or the DS. The libraries on them are just insane. And I have a lot of nostalgia and a lot of love specifically for the look of the games on the GBA. But Mario versus Donkey Kong, I think, is a pretty ugly game. Like, look at Mario's sprite in all of this footage. He just doesn't look great. And one thing that you have to consider about the remakes of these older games is that we visualize these old games in a certain way where they look way better than they actually do. Because I have my GBA SP right beside me. I'll throw up some footage here. And I was playing Mario versus Donkey Kong. I also played a bit of Pokemon Leaf Green. And one thing about the GBA SP, even with the backlit screen, it looks like you are playing the console on about 25% brightness. The screen has absolutely zero vibrancy. Now, I'm sure there is something to my console just being old. I have the tribal tattoo GBA SP. I got it years ago. Did I really look after it? Not really. It was in a drawer. So maybe if you had one that was in really good shape, it might look slightly more vibrant. But then you're getting into the conversation of modding your GBA, where you can mod your GBA SP, put an OLED panel into it, and they look absolutely insane. I've seen them at retro gaming conventions, and they are unbelievable. But I think you're getting into 100, 150 euro just to do that. So then all of a sudden, Mario vs. Donkey Kong is probably a cheap game for the GBA, the actual cartridge. But then if you just want to get a modded GBA to make the game look decent, you have to pay 100, 150 euros. So all of a sudden, you're probably nearing a 200 euro investment just to be able to play Mario vs. Donkey Kong, where, as I just said, I paid 45 euro for that game. I could literally pop it into my Switch, play it. And then another thing that you have to consider about all of these games is the comfort. I like the 3DS, I like the GBA SP, and I like the Wii U. They're great consoles, but it is undeniable that the Switch is infinitely more comfortable to play than the 3DS, than the Wii, than the GBA, and the Wii U. Because if you're playing Donkey Kong Country HD on the Switch, you don't have to waggle the Joy-Cons around like you do on the Wii. And I will have to say, after playing a lot of Wii games starting up this channel, the way you have to hold a Wiimote just isn't comfortable whatsoever. It's not an ergonomic controller. When you hold it sideways, it's really uncomfortable. When you have to point it at the screen, it's even more uncomfortable and it just hurts your wrist. And then the GBA SP and 3DS, while they're still comfortable consoles, they're definitely smaller. I have fairly big hands. Here's my head for scale. I might have a big head, you don't know. But holding a 3DS for a long period of time, my hands start to cramp up. Holding a GBA SP, where my knuckles are literally touching each other, they also cramp up. So now I could just play the games comfortably on the Switch in HD, just pop the cartridge in. I don't need to worry about finding a charger. I don't need to worry about my GBA SP battery dying somehow, because it is an old console. Maybe one day it will just break and then I'd have to replace it, but that won't happen with the Switch, hopefully. And I know there will be a certain commenter in the comments talking about, oh, well, you can just emulate them. And that is okay. You do whatever you want to do. I have nothing personal against emulation, but if there is an official way to play a game, I will always choose the official way rather than going around and emulating it. I just personally can't get into games that I emulate. Again, I'm not totally against it, but the fact that I can just walk into a shop and buy Mario Kart or Mario vs. Donkey Kong or buy Donkey Kong Country, I'd much prefer to spend the money and just be able to play it officially. That's just how I work. I know there will be other people who are like, oh, well, I'd prefer to emulate it and then I can run it at this frame rate and this resolution. That's fine. That's just not for me. But yeah, I think I probably am in a minority, specifically with the people that watch YouTube videos. It feels the YouTube community, especially the Nintendo YouTube community, really hate remakes and remasters. But I will always be for them, because the thing is, when you think of preservation, the best way to preserve a game, ideally, is to have the original version of it playable on modern console. Like, you look at the Castlevania Advanced Collection or the DS Collection. They're just the games, playable on modern consoles. That's great. I don't think they did anything to change them other than just to put borders and all this sort of stuff on them. But outside of that, the other best way to do it is to just remake or remaster the game to a certain extent. In the case of Mario vs. Donkey Kong, that is a full from the ground up remake. It looks totally different, just completely updated graphics. And now that game should be playable in perpetuity if we get a Switch 1, Switch 2, Switch 3, Switch 4, same way we did with PlayStation and Xbox. And I will always be for that, even if the remake or remaster is slightly botched. Fair enough, you get ones that are unplayable, absolutely awful. I've heard specifically there's a game called 13. Apparently the remake or the remaster of that is absolutely atrocious. That obviously is bad. But then you get into the ones like, as I've mentioned on this channel a lot, Glover, that just came to Switch and PS4. It was already on Steam. That is the most faithful port of a game I have ever seen. But apparently it adds a couple more bugs, but it's still playable at the very least, which is ultimately, I think, the goal of all this. So I like the Nintendo remakes and remasters, and it's people like me that make them keep doing it, because guess what? I buy them almost every single time. If I open my drawer right now, I would see Link's Awakening, I would see Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, I would see Donkey Kong Country HD, Xenoblade X, Mario vs. Donkey Kong. I'm trying to think, Crash Insane Trilogy. There's probably 15 more games in that drawer that are just remakes or remasters. Call me stupid, but I'll keep giving them my money. So thank you for watching. Let me know what you think about this, because I think this might be a bit more of a controversial topic. And what's your sort of threshold for when you look at a remake or remaster? What things do you consider when coming to a decision on whether or not you're going to buy it? Do you already own the game? Is that a thing? Is that a factor? Do you think of how good or how bad the remake is? Or are you just like me, where you're just looking for another excuse to play some of these games and I just want them on modern consoles? That's just how I feel. So let me know. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.